Welcome back to part 3 of Beethoven's Violin. I am Dan Weiser, the founder and artistic director of AmiciMusic. I hope you've been able to watch the 2 previous concerts that Tim and I did over the last couple weeks, as we are performing almost all of Beethoven's violin sonatas over these 3 weeks. Tonight we finish up with Sonata number 9, his very famous Kreutzer Sonata, and Sonata number 10, a kind of quirky little last piece he wrote in 1812 towards the later part of his life. Again, a huge thanks to Tim Schwarz, my colleague and friend from back in our Peabody days. Also a big thanks to Frances Borowski for all her work on the editing of the videos. Another great thanks to my late father, who painted the wonderful paintings in the background here. So sit back, enjoy the power and the majesty of this incredible music. Here's Beethoven's Violin, Part 3. Our first piece on our final Beethoven violin program is his 9th sonata, better known as the Kreutzer Sonata. This was his longest, his most virtuosic, and most passionate of all the violin sonatas he wrote. And it really should not be called the Kreutzer Sonata. Kreutzer was a well-known violinist in Paris for whom Beethoven dedicated this piece when he published it in 1805. Kreutzer actually never played the piece. In fact, said it was utterly unintelligible. Didn't really like this music. I think Beethoven thought maybe he could get something through Napoleon if he dedicated to Kreutzer, who was Napoleon's favorite violinist there in Paris. It should be called the Bridge Tower Sonata. This was actually a piece written for a very well-known violinist at the time named George Bridgetower, who had a fascinating background. His mother was Polish of German descent. His father was Abyssinian, then a kind of big empire that it's really modern-day Ethiopia. So he was half black, half white. He was known as the mulatto Bridgetower. But had a kind of wild side about him that really matched well with Beethoven. And he was making a tour from Poland across Europe in 1803 and came through Vienna. And Beethoven met up with him, liked him immediately, and began to write this incredibly concerto-like piece where both the piano and the violin feel like they're playing concertos competing against each other at times. It's just a fiery dialogue that often they seem to be just talking over each other, the violin and the piano. The 2 men got along famously. They did this premiere with very little rehearsal. In fact, Beethoven didn't have time to write a 3rd movement for it. So he took the 3rd movement that he had written for the 6th violin sonata a year earlier, which we did last concert. He didn't like that for the 6th sonata. I thought it was too wild, and he put it on to this one. It's kind of like a great tarantella, like a riding, galloping horse, and it fits much better here. Although Beethoven didn't even like it, he meant to sort of change this one at times to match the power, probably get back to the minor mode of the 1st movement, but he never did. And there's a beautiful 2nd movement with these very long theme and variations that seem like they're from a different world than the 1st and the 3rd movements. What happened to Bridgetower is apparently there was some quarrel between Bridgetower and Beethoven where Bridgetower said something nasty about some woman that Beethoven liked, and from then on Beethoven refused to talk to him and just shut him out. And Bridgetower was sort of really lost in history because of that. This is a piece that really sort of goes to Beethoven's incredible power and the fact that he saw himself as almost godlike in his composition. Once, around this time, Beethoven had said, "Music is the mediator between the spiritual and the sensual life. It is a higher revelation than all wisdom and philosophy. It is the one incorporeal entrance into the higher world of knowledge which comprehends mankind, but which mankind cannot comprehend. Music is the wine which inspires one to new generative processes. And I am Bacchus, who presses out this glorious wine for mankind and makes them spiritually drunken." With that kind of ego, it is sort of appropriate that Schumann had said, "Nature would burst should she attempt to produce nothing except Beethoven's." He, of course, didn't really care about the violinists like Kreutzer, who said this piece was impossible to play. He once said to a violinist, "I know that God is nearer to me than to others. Do you believe that I ever think of a wretched fiddle when he speaks to me? It's also wonderful that Beethoven's music sort of led us into this romantic period with that power and awe. And there's a wonderful quote by E.T.A. Hoffmann, who himself was both a composer and a writer and an artist. And he said, Haydn's music reminds us of a blissful, eternally youthful life before the fall, while Beethoven's music sets in motion the lever of fear, of awe, of horror, of suffering, and awakens just that infinite longing which is the essence of Romanticism. Now, this piece is also famous because it inspired a novella by the same name, the Kreutzer Sonata, by the great Russian author Leo Tolstoy, in which a man narrates his life. He's in a loveless marriage. His wife plays piano on the side, and he watches one night as she plays the Kreutzer Sonata with this violinist, and he gets so jealous and is brought to such fits that he ultimately kills her. Kreutzer writes about this in this incredible novel. He said, this is the author, I was in torture, especially because I was sure that towards me she had no other feeling than of perpetual irritation, sometimes interrupted by the customary sensuality, and that this man, the violinist, thanks to his external elegance and his novelty, and above all, thanks to his unquestionably remarkable talent, thanks to the attraction exercised under the influence of that infernal music, thanks to the impression that music produces upon nervous natures, this man would not only please, but would inevitably and without difficulty subjugate and conquer her and do with her as he liked. That's from the Kreutzer Sonata by Leo Tolstoy, written in 1889. Shows the power of this music, and music in general, but it's the Kreutzer Sonata with its wildness and almost uncontrolled urges that pushed Tolstoy to the edge in this novel. And then there was a string quartet written by Janáček in the early 20th century based upon Kreutzer's Sonata by Tolstoy. So it's just wonderful how this piece led us down so many pathways towards great creative music. One last quote that this piece always sort of brings to mind, it's from Thomas Pynchon in the book Gravity's Rainbow. He said once, you know, a person feels good listening to Rossini, but all you feel like after listening to Beethoven is going out and invading Poland. You might feel like invading Poland, especially after this first movement. Just sit back and take it all in, the wonderful Kreutzer Sonata by Ludwig van Beethoven. We come now to Beethoven's final sonata, his 10th sonata, which was written in 1812, so almost 10 years passed from the time that he wrote the Kreutzer in 1803 till he wrote this, and then he never returned again to the genre of violin and piano. This sonata was actually written for a specific occasion. There was a very famous French violinist named Pierre Rode, who had sort of taken the world by storm in the 1790s as a young prodigy, got an early position at the Paris Conservatoire, even played for Napoleon as his sort of solo violinist for a while, and then was hired away by Tsar Alexander in Russia. And he spent 10 years in Russia from about 1803 to 1812. And then he decides to return to Paris. And on the way back, sort of stops many places along the way to give concerts to show off a little bit. And one of the stops is Vienna. And Beethoven is asked to write a piece for Rode. And so he writes this. The pianist who he writes for is his patron, the Archduke Rudolph, who had been very supportive of Beethoven, had studied piano with Beethoven, was apparently a pretty good pianist, not phenomenal. When Beethoven was once asked how good he was and whether he played very well, Beethoven said, when he is feeling just right. But it was for Rudolph that he had written his famous triple concerto, and he had also dedicated many great works, the Hammerklavier, the Archduke's Trio, the Lebewohl piano sonata, fifth piano concerto, and it was Rudolph who had really helped Beethoven financially during the difficult years after, as Napoleon was coming through and sort of craziness was happening in Vienna. Rudolph was there through that. So he writes this piece for him, and so in many ways it's a very different piece than the Kreutzer, which was very virtuosic and sort of over-the-top craziness. This is a much more intimate sort of chamber music kind of piece. Rather quirky, and again, it sort of stands at that fault line between Beethoven's middle period, when he sort of petered out a little bit, and then starts up in his last period, where he begins to sort of find this transcendent music that we still have a difficult time understanding. It seems that he's not even speaking to actual people. He's sort of talking to himself and not even caring whether there's an audience. This piece is in 4 movements, so it's a larger piece in that sense, but they're all much smaller than the movements of the Kreutzer. There's a wonderful first movement that kind of starts again as if it's in mid-sentence. The violin just sort of drops off this little turn, and then the piano picks it up and a little dialogue takes place. As Sidney Finkelstein said about this whole piece, he said, instead of the brilliance of the Kreutzer Sonata, here in this sonata, the quiet spirit of chamber music prevails. The work is like a soft conversation from the heart, in which one hardly hears a voice raised, instead of urgent, dramatic expostulation. Here is the mood is one of gentle lyricism, with but glances of the profound depths of experience and conquest of pain that had made possible the achievement of this serenity. And serenity is certainly the word of the second movement, almost hymn-like, spiritual in its setting. It's a very quick little scherzo joke of the third movement. And then the fourth movement, very folk-like ditty that starts off and dance-like this movement. But it does take some rather weird turns along the way, suddenly stopping its motion, getting very slow. This is really Beethoven, again, exploring not a sort of continuous thematic movement, but stops and starts in his brain as if he's sort of contemplating all sorts of things with his wonderful music. So we hope you enjoyed this final one of Beethoven's Sonata number 10 in G major, written in 1812. I hope you've enjoyed this epic exploration of Beethoven's music for violin and piano over the last 3 weeks. We have performed 8 out of his 10 incredible violin sonatas. Wanted to conclude with the wonderful eulogy that was given by Franz Grillparzer at Beethoven's funeral in 1827. He said the following: Beethoven was an artist, but he was also a man, a human being in the most perfect sense of the word. Because he withdrew from the world, they called him hostile, and because he shunned sentimentality, unfeeling. No, one who knows himself to be firm does not flee. He who is oversensitive avoids the display of feeling. If he fled from the world, it was because in the depths of his loving nature, he found no weapon against it. If he withdrew from mankind, it was because he had given his all and received nothing in return. He remained alone because he found no second self. Yet until death, he preserved a human heart for all humanity, a fatherly affection for his kin, and his possessions and lifeblood for the whole world. Thus he was, and thus he died, and thus will he live for all time. Just a beautiful quote. He has lived on. 250 years later, we still consider him probably the greatest composer to have ever lived. Thank you for taking this journey with us. We look forward to seeing you at future live streams. For now, I am Daniel Weiser, the founder and artistic director of AmiciMusic. We hope you will check out our website, and please do give some donations to our organization so we can continue to make these incredible programs and live streams available for everybody. You can do that, again, at the website. Check out our videos and classes that are coming up. Stay safe and be healthy.